Welcome to the Alouettes Flightdeck, the podcast dedicated to Montreal Alouettes football. I'm Cliffy D. You can find me on Twitter at Cliffy D.
And I'm Tim Capper. You can also find me on Twitter at Repact. That's REPPACT. And this episode is presented by our good friends over at SportBuff, where if you use the promo code of Flightdeck-10 at checkout, you will save 10% off your entire order. So head over to sportbuffshop.com, save 10%, and enjoy your brand new merch.
And you can find the Alouettes Flight Deck all over social media. You can follow us on Twitter at Alouettes FLDeck. Find us on Instagram at Alouettes Flight Deck. On Facebook at Alouettes Flight Deck Pod. Make sure you check out our merch store over at teespring.com/stores/Al's Flight Deck. And you can find the Alouettes Flight Deck on YouTube over at youtube.com/Alouettes Flight Deck. And if you're looking for any episodes, past, present, you can find our entire archive over at www.alouettesflightdeck.ca.
And at least I have to admit, because just in case if something does happen on Twitter, Cliff, and it happens to go down, we want to at least mention that we currently are over on Mastodon. Just do I don't know what it is. It's so different, but do a search for Alouettes Flight Deck. It's the same thing, Alouettes FL Deck. You'll find us whichever server that we're currently on. It's at Alouettes FL Deck at mstdn.ca.
Oy.
I know, eh? But hey, there's not much you can do, dude, when it comes to Mastodon. There's nothing you can do about it.
Well, no, and it's so funny. Like a week ago, I was seeing all the doom scrolling and all that nonsense about like Twitter possibly going belly up, and there's still some people that think it's just a matter of time, and maybe it is. Who knows? But As a failsafe, yes, we are on Mastodon. I'm still kind of trying to figure it out, but
I know.
Really, really keeping hope beyond hope that whatever nonsense is going on Twitter, just sort yourselves out. Really, like I'm too old for this nonsense. I really am.
Obviously, we are. Al's season ended with their loss in the Eastern Final to Toronto, the eventual winners of the Grey Cup, the Toronto Argonauts. But Cliff headed out to Regina this past week, has quite a few stories he wants to talk about and about his experiences, about the things that the flight deck has done. But there's still some great stuff to talk about, too, because the lists were released today on who the free agents are going to be for the Alouettes, and also a very interesting end of year press conference that the Alouettes held earlier this week that we want to touch on a few of the subjects that were brought up, not only by Danny Machocha, but also with our president. So it's we'll get to that, but obviously it's right now up to Cliff, and we want to find about all the fun stuff that you did, dude, besides traveling west to go east.
Well, that's part of the joy of going to Regina for Grey Cup, is that Regina is not exactly a hub destination. So in order to get there, you kind of have to take alternative routes. Like there are flights direct from Montreal to Regina, but they are not cheap. Thus, if you want to go, typically you will end up having to go west to go east, as you said. As it turned out, the original itinerary was Montreal to Toronto, Toronto to Winnipeg, Winnipeg to Regina, which a little bizarre, but there's very little downtime in between both. Like, so you're getting off one plane, head to the next gate, get on the other plane, and off you go. So not so bad. Like the original plan was to arrive in Regina by about 1 p.m. their time. Like that meant getting up at the crack of dawn here in Montreal to do it. But okay, it's Grey Cup. Just want to get there and get the party going. No problem. Problem is Monday night, start winding down, start getting ready for bed, and excited because it's Grey Cup and all that, but need to try and get some sleep. So I'm starting to get ready for bed, and then I get an email from WestJet. Your first flight has been canceled. Oh, that's not good. I should preface this too by Montreal got a major dumping of snow overnight, but and I guess as a result of this impending weather, that's probably what prompted WestJet to cancel said flight. So they said that we will be emailing you within the hour for a new itinerary. Okay, let's see what happens. This is unexpected and kind of disappointing, but let's see what happens. Get the new itinerary, and now they have us going to Regina later. They now have us going Montreal, Toronto, Calgary, Regina, with I think it was an hour and a half layover in Toronto.
That's not bad.
And a 3-hour layover in Calgary.
That's not bad either. Did you go to Chick-fil-A? Because I know there's one in the airport.
No. No, there's not.
There isn't?
There's no Chick-fil-A. You might be thinking of Chili's, which, yes, did go to Chili's.
I could have sworn last time I was in the Calgary airport was 7 years ago that they had a Chick-fil-A in the airport at that time. So maybe it's gone.
Maybe, but no, must be. So problem is, yes, if these were the only, you're basically looking at almost 4 hours worth of delays.
Yeah.
So not fun, not ideal, and got on the horn with WestJet and tried to finagle to try and get something a little bit sooner, and they managed to squeeze us in a little bit earlier, but still end up you're going to be arriving in Regina, in the evening, late evening. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, what are you going to do? You make the best of it. So get on the first flight, no problems there. Fly out to Calgary. I said, wait out. Problem is, though, from Toronto to Calgary, there was a delay waiting for staff from another plane to get on.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So staff shortages, of course. What are you going to do about that? Get out to Calgary. It's so funny. In the 3-hour layover that was there, they changed the gate 3 times. Once while in the air, and then twice more as you're waiting for your flight. So make up your mind. Where do you want us to go? What were we supposed to do if we want to get to Regina? Where is the plane? It was just so baffling, more than anything else. Not to mention too, when you think about it, I had to go through 4 provinces when it was all said and done to get to my final destination, and 3 time zones, no less. Mm-hmm. So unfortunately, only arrived in Regina around 12:30. So unfortunately, I had to miss the meet and greet, the opening concert, all that jazz. Disappointing, but I mean, it is what it is. So get to Regina, and once you're there, it's great. I mean, we found an absolutely fantastic Airbnb many months ago. Very happy with the service there. Very happy with the accommodations. Just top notch. Absolutely amazing. The next day was the CFL Awards that I was as a member of the media. And that's another great thing, too. I'd like to thank the CFL for once again recognizing the Alouettes Flightdeck as members of the media. We were accredited, and I'm very thankful for that. Being able to go and attend the award show is very cool. And as far as media goes, you don't get to sit in the crowd with the rest of the attendees and all that, but there is a specific media room where the winners are escorted afterwards, and you get to speak with the winners of the awards, which is absolutely incredible. That's cool. Yeah, I think I saw the pictures. It looked like a giant lounge. That's essentially what it was. I guess media lounge, for lack of a better term. That's what was referred to as. Got to see quite a few reporters and people that we've even had on the show as well, which is fantastic to sit and be able to chat with them in between award presentations and that. So it was just a really great experience. You'll be happy to know, Tim, that lots of people are listening to the Flight Deck. At least the media people are listening to the Flight Deck. They really like what we're doing. So keep up the good work. So we will. Yeah. Thanks to everybody who said that. That's nice to hear. So we may as well just at this point just jump right into the CFL Awards itself. Yeah, by all means, because I got a ton to say. I got a ton to say, man. Oh, go ahead and set us up for it. Okay, well. As you know, 3 members of the Alouettes were up for awards. Chandler Worthy was up against Mario Alford for most outstanding special teams player. Tyson Philpott was up against Dalton Shawn for most outstanding rookie. And of course, Eugene Lewis up against Zach Caleros for most outstanding player. And unfortunately, the Alouettes got shut out of all 3 categories. What to me was the most surprising was we were given the results of the votes, the first place votes, and what struck me more than anything else was not so much with Tyson Philpott versus Dalton Shawn, like that really it was almost a runaway vote there, to the point where even a couple of people in the media had asked, like, how could you vote for Tyson Philpott? Like, no disrespect to him, but I think like there's 2 media members who voted for Tyson Philpott as most outstanding rookie, and they were beside themselves about that. And I get it when you look at the sheer numbers, the stats that Dalton Shawn put up. I mean, led the league in receiving when you think about it. As a rookie.
Yeah, and I thought it was going to be tough for him for Tyson to win it too. That was one of the ones I didn't think that the Alouettes would walk away with. But I mean, people voted. If 2 people voted, doesn't necessarily mean they were homer votes either. So who knows?
Well, and again, because they don't publish it, I think it's up to reporters or voting members. Like it's up to them to decide if they want to release their ballots.
Yeah.
So I mean, one would assume that 2 of like the 2 Tyson Philpott votes had to have come from Montreal, and it's very possible they did, but there's no way of saying 100% yes or no.
Right.
I mean, yeah. So it's just interesting how it wasn't necessarily unanimous, but you figured there'd be at least a little bit. But I guess a lot of people just simply looked at the numbers and said, okay, well, I mean, and yeah, I'm not discrediting Dalton Shawn's season at all. Like, he definitely did have an outstanding season.
He really did.
He definitely deserved to win. It's just that initial look at the numbers, like, wow, okay, like no love at all for Tyson. That's unfortunate, but.
What about the one for special teams between Worthy and Alford?
See, that one, there was a little bit more distance, and I thought that one would have been a little bit closer as well. Alford ended up with 38 of the 50 first place votes. Truthfully, I expected it to be a lot closer. Like I expected it almost neck and neck, to tell you the truth. I mean, when you think about like both these guys, the season they've had, they both had tremendous seasons, different numbers, different scenarios, of course, but the fact that these guys were both on the same team to start the year.
Yeah, no kidding.
It's a great story all by itself, and just incredible to think about.
Well, and I've been able to confirm, and I think I mentioned it a few weeks ago too. I still think, with Alfred winning, does it make him the first ever winner of any of the CFL awards after getting traded that same year? Which is mind blowing if you think about it.
And even more mind blowing is that he was not a CFL All-Star too.
Right. See that I know. See, that's what's so crazy about it. And all honesty, I think this is one where I think Western bias took over. I really do think that Worthy. If people can say I'm a homer, but I do think Worthy should have won this one, in my opinion.
Again, I was just expecting to be a little bit. Listen, I was expecting to be almost a dead heat, but but somebody had to win, I suppose, and it turned out to be Alfred. I mean, I'm disappointed too, because I definitely think Chandler did have an absolutely outstanding season, and if he had to give it to an Alouette, like that would have been the one to give, knowing full well the rest of the story. But
makes you wonder how, if depending on when the voting was done, how much that last kickoff for a touchdown swayed people's votes.
For Alfred, you mean?
For Alfred, yeah.
Could very well be. I mean, I believe you're supposed to look at the entire body of work, and that's how I would have looked at it too. Is okay, if I was given a vote, how would I have looked at it? And I would definitely have to look at the entire season. Like, I mean, let's not forget, Alfred was injured for the first, I think, 3 or 4 games of the season, which led to Worthy becoming that guy, becoming the guy that is good enough to be the Eastern nominee for this award. And again. And maybe that's what it was the fact that despite he was injured, not only did Alfred come back, gets traded to another team, and doesn't miss a beat, essentially. Like, he goes back and he is that superstar returner. So I'm wondering if that was, I think for a lot of people, that had to be what made them decide to go with Alfred over Worthy.
I don't know. And the last one, Gina versus Claros.
Yeah, this one, that kind of bugged me, just considering when you talk about MOP, which is most outstanding player, versus MVP, most valuable player.
Right.
This is like, and again, some people like to conflate the two, and it's not quite the same. Like I've always looked at valuable versus outstanding as two different things, even though it's for all intents and purposes more or less the same idea as far as how the award goes. I was shocked when I saw the final numbers. Caleros got 48 of 50 first place votes. That I had a hard time computing that. Like I can understand why some people might value Zach Caleros more. Like he may have been more valuable to his team, and it's hard to dispute that considering the Bombers went 15-3 in the regular season.
Yeah,
and a lot of that was because Zach Caleros simply won football games. Like he was a very valued member of that organization. You can even make the argument if Caleros had missed the same number of matches that Nathan Rourke did, would the Bombers be in the position where they are? I would have a hard time believing that. Whereas Gino, no matter who his quarterback was, no matter what the situation was, win or lose, he still had a lot of outstanding games. He put up some great numbers. He did things that were otherworldly as far as I'm concerned.
Oh,
and
yeah.
He was the straw that stirred the drink here in Montreal. Like he is that guy. He is the superstar without any question. Like when you think about the Montreal Alouettes nowadays, you're thinking about Gino Lewis. To me, like that's what made him outstanding, is that he made incredible plays happen consistently over and over again. Mm-hmm. As far as I'm concerned, like for me, to think that only 2 people decided that he was worthy of a first place vote, I also have a very, very hard time believing that. I mean, again, if you're looking at the context between most outstanding versus most valuable, I could probably make the argument that maybe if this was a most valuable player award, you can make the argument for Zach Caleros in that regards.
Right.
Me, I'm thinking more about the most outstanding part. And truthfully, I don't think a guy who's the quarterback for the back-to-back champions who put up another stellar season, I wouldn't say it's outstanding, but it's not outstanding in the way that one would expect the most outstanding award to go. Whereas Gino was outstanding, even when the Alouettes were losing games and still trying to find their way. And despite all of the extracurriculars that were going on with this team, Gino was still there game in and game out and just playing like his hair was on fire. That's just what he does. Like that to me was the outstanding part, was that he was still able to be a superstar in this league despite everything that was going on in Montreal.
Yeah, exactly. No, I agree with you. Were you able to speak with the guys? I know you did see them, I think, after the ceremony too. But did you get to speak with them at all about how they felt about where they ended up? I mean, obviously, I'm sure for them it was an honor to be nominated. But I mean, did you get to speak with any of the 3?
I did get to see Gino and Tyson afterwards at other events, and I got to speak with them a bit about all sorts of things, really. But I think they understood what was going on. I think if anything, it was motivation now, as if they needed more motivation for 2023. Mm-hmm. I think this is just going to further fuel the fire. Yeah,
that's what I put on social too. Use it as bulletin board material for them.
Definitely. Like whenever I saw these guys, and it's funny, I actually bumped into on a number of occasions throughout the entire weekend, which was extremely cool, and always so happy to see me, which is also cool and kind of humbling when you think about it. Mm-hmm. But they were definitely enjoying their Grey Cup experience for sure. Like, just going to different parties and bumping into people, and people were flocking right to them. It's great because you have Eugene and Tyson, like kind of like the I don't want to say the old guard introducing the new guard to the show kind of thing, but like 1A,
1B.
If you want to call it that, I think that's, even though this was Gino's first time at a Grey Cup festival and being a part of the show, so to speak, like this was new for him too. But, he was navigating the media. He was, kind of, I like to think he was kind of taking Tyson under his wing a little bit and just kind of showing him how to be a professional, how to do certain things like that. And Tyson was right there, just as polished, just as professional. I mean, you can't help but love these guys, both of them. They're just such great ambassadors for the Montreal Alouettes and for the Canadian Football League too.
Yep, for sure.
Speaking with other fans that had encounters with them, like they were just gushing over how just polished and how well they came across, especially Tyson. Like, even though he's still a very young man, like
yes, he's more than half my age, younger.
Exactly. Well, look, he was born in the 2000s.
I know.
That's still kind of hard to wrap your head around. But still very poised, very generous with his time. Like I said, like whenever we'd see him at events, like, people wanted pictures, they wanted autographs, and he was more than happy to accommodate everybody. Gino too. I mean, they're just, look, you talk about pros, like just professionals 100%. That's those guys right there. Unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to see Chandler Worthy too much. I don't know if he was really one for going to parties and things like that. Maybe not be, and that's fine. But I would have liked to have seen him too. But
yeah,
like the guys were just telling me, like, they're hanging out as much as they can and just taking in all the sights and the scenery in Regina and just enjoying the whole experience. But
being able to be there not as a player is so different, as we have heard from many players in the past. It's so different being there as a spectator, which is basically what they were, versus being in the game itself. Obviously, they would trade for it, but still, it's a different vibe.
Oh yeah, and there's no question they definitely felt they should have been there, and it has to be a motivating factor for them. I think now that they can say that, yes, we've now seen what Grey Cup is like as a non-participating team, and they enjoyed it. But at the same time, as you said, they would trade in a New York Minute. They would trade that to be suiting up and being out there in the cold on Sunday, for sure.
Yeah, I some of the things I love, by the way, I'm sure many people saw it on social. I love that the 360 cam room. That was cool.
That's pretty slick.
And if people don't know what we're talking about, it's basically they have a camera. It rotates basically on a full 360-degree axis and takes pictures.
Yeah, so you get like it's kind of a crazy effect because you're just standing still and the camera goes around you. Mm-hmm. But when you watch the video, it looks like you're turning around 360. Mm-hmm. Man, technology is cool.
Yeah, exactly.
And it kind of gave events like that, like Grey Cup events, it kind of gave it that extra little gravitas. Like it gave it a little extra, like it really made it that much more upscale. Like it made it like more of a thing than what it may have been in the past, because it really showed like hey, this is what technology is. This is 2022. We want to be a part of the big time, and this is how you do it.
Yeah, exactly. I think what obviously we're going to lead it to the game, even though the Owls weren't in. We're going to just give our quick thoughts about it. But following the awards ceremony, what else were you able to take advantage of and take part in?
A lot of it was just go throughout the Grey Cup Festival. Like, it was just incredible to take in all the sites and all the events that they had going on. There is so much going on.
Along with your co-host bugging you more than once to buy him a shirt.
Yes.
Which I thank you for, by the way.
Oh, happy to do it. I mean, that's the thing. Like, lots of Grey Cup merch was being sold, like jerseys, T-shirts, hats. I mean, people were rocking Grey Cup stuff all over the place, which always good. It's great for the coffers. It's great for the league. You definitely love to see it. Like, that's one thing with football fans, and especially like people in Saskatchewan too. Like, there was a sense of pride throughout the entire weekend. Like, they really wanted to show off that, like, even though this is technically the smallest city with a CFL team, people love their football in Saskatchewan. I think it's undisputed. It has been undisputed for a long time, but people really truly love the CFL. They love the Riders no matter what, and they wanted to show, like, hey, this is our Grey Cup. We want to make this a once-in-a-lifetime event. And I would say, based on if you take the entire weekend into account, like from start to finish, I think they nailed it. Like, they showed that they can host this party, and people showed up and had themselves a good time. It was so great to see. There's so much to see. There's so much to do. It was just a really great festival atmosphere. Like, just really true. It's what you would come to expect from the Grey Cup.
It so makes me want it to come back to Montreal. Please. Alouettes ownership. Let's get it back here to Montreal. We know where the next two are going to be, Hamilton and BC. We're so due. We're so due.
And it's funny, too, because people were like, as soon as they see that you're like, they saw the podcast. And first of all, shout out to everybody who came up and acknowledged, like, they saw the logo and they're asking about the podcast, asking about you and I. They're asking about, all sorts of stuff, and just so many. We got lots of listeners out there, folks. And believe me when I say we appreciate each and every one of you. But the one question that people were asking me more than anything else, I guess, as a sort of representative from Montreal, is when are the Alouettes going to host a Grey Cup? When's Montreal going to be able to host a Grey Cup again? And really, the only answer truly is you just can't have snow on Olympic Stadium. And I just don't truly foresee a scenario where Percival Molson would host the Grey Cup game due to the size, due to
even with expansion, maybe they could squeeze in 30, maybe,
and even then it would still be tight AF.
Mm-hmm.
But I think realistically, if you're going to do the Grey Cup, it would have to be at Olympic Stadium. Whether you like Olympic Stadium or not, the reality is it can hold 60,000 plus fans. It can accommodate, and it's, there's a lot of reasons why it makes total sense to have it at Olympic Stadium. But this whole nonsense about snow being on the roof, if there's, was it 5 centimeters, I think is the Mendoza line?
Yeah. But I think what people need to who may not know, there are heaters still within the roof itself. So it helps, but I don't see a game being canceled. I mean, look at it this year. We could have had it here this year. We didn't get our first snow until, the snow would have been gone off the roof. But I'm thinking, I saw something on social media this week. I think it was actually CFL News Hub who actually did something. But, the next 5 places where this Grey Cup would be. And I honestly think that we will be one of the 3 years following the one in BC. I really do. We got to get it back here, man. It's been since 2008. So
no, it's been it's definitely been a long time, and as I said, there's an appetite for it. Like, people want to come to Montreal. Again, to them, they see Montreal as the ultimate party city. So why wouldn't you have Montreal, or Canada's biggest party, essentially? Why wouldn't you have it in arguably Canada's biggest party city? And I'm hard pressed to think of a reason why wouldn't you want to do that. So here's hoping that they figure something out. Maybe by 2025, maybe Montreal could be in contention. Maybe by then they'll have figured something out or found a way to control the weather and promise that it won't snow. I don't know, but
something.
There's got to be something and because it would be awesome. Like, there's so many events that are happening, and I think about the potential of you and I doing something for Grey Cup as well for fans would be so damn cool.
I've thought about that too, actually.
Like I like what some of the other podcasts have done when Grey Cup was in their city, and like, we could do that too. Why not us?
Exactly.
So again, we already know 2023 is going to be in Hamilton. 2024 it's going to be in Vancouver at BC Place. 2025. I mean, if Gary Stern and Mario Cicchini are listening, let it be known that there is absolutely 100% demand for a Grey Cup in Montreal.
Yep.
I'm not sure how you would make it happen. I don't, how you would make it work over Olympic Stadium, trying to promise somehow that it won't snow very much.
I don't know. I don't know
what quite frankly, I don't know what it'll take to make it officially official. Play the Grey Cup in September. I don't know.
Hey, with the way the schedule's going, it's going to be interesting to see. And by the way, we have to say it's the Alouettes. It's the Siegel. It's the group, the Siegel group, that has the controlling interest in the team, which people need to remember. So I'm sure they would be the ones who would be deciding if and when they want to bid for the Grey Cup, and hopefully soon. I mean, who knows when they're going to start doing 2025, right?
Right, and again, a lot can happen between now and 2025 too. So I mean, that has to be kind of taken into consideration as well. I mean, who knows? I mean, to me, there's a big part of me that would love to see it at Percival Molson. I just logistically don't see it as a viable option.
It would be so nice to go back old school, but yeah, I agree with you.
I mean, unless you're more than willing to pay $700 for a ticket, like any ticket, but I don't think that's happening. And the fact that there's no actual seats at Percival Molson Stadium, I mean, there are some, but not every single seat. Would you really want to pay $500, for example, to sit at your own seat, like on the bench for Grey Cup? It's
a fair point. I think it would it would behoove the CFL to do it at the Olympic Stadium. So
yeah, and again, especially too, if the goal of Grey Cup is to make money, right?
Exactly.
So, like for whether it's for the league or for the Alouettes ownership group or what have you. I mean, at the end of the day, you want to make money, and best way to do it. And again, being able to invite 60,000 plus football fans to your flagship, your premier event.
CFL family, baby.
Exactly.
CFL family. Do we talk about the game, Cliff, or is there some more tidbits you want to talk about?
Yeah, no, there's a like I said, was able to. I was very thankful to be invited onto the Rod Peterson show. It was good to see Rod. Hadn't seen him since 2021. But of course, Rod is, he's all about Grey Cup, right? So he wants to. Yeah. He wanted to make sure that his show was there live. So I had quite a few guests on, and I was invited last minute, but it was awesome to get on there and talk with Rod again.
You closed out the show, baby.
Right? This was totally unexpected, but okay. Yeah. I'll gladly hop on and talk football. I'm all about that. I got to meet Reed from the Markcast. Super good dude. Definitely a pleasure meeting with him, and just being able to share ideas back and forth about the whole podcast universe with the Canadian Football League was very cool. Throughout the day, like lots of media stuff going on, so I was very thankful to be a part of that. So it was tremendous. I mean, like when it comes to covering the Grey Cup, I mean, there's so much that goes into it, so much that happens behind the scenes that I think typical fans don't really know about or maybe even appreciate. But I mean, there's so much that happens, and the fact that stuff goes off pretty much without a hitch is nothing short of impressive. So I mean, anybody that's involved, like whether it's like print journalism, television, radio, podcast, any sort of media medium that does what they can to give this event its kind of coverage, you got to take your hats off to them. And I like to think too, like just us being able to talk about Grey Cup and seeing what I was able to see in Regina, and I can only imagine what you were able to see, like just watching from afar.
Oh yeah.
I mean, like everything that was there. Like I think this event got like slick, professional production value to it. I mean, nothing looked hokey or out of place. I mean, it to me, like I think this entire league, its media members, everybody involved, from top to bottom, just did an outstanding job of putting their best foot forward, presenting the product in the best way they knew how. And to me, I think it came across as professionally and as polished as one could hope for an event of this nature.
Oh, they did it was very well done from what I saw. All the way across the board. TSN, the people that they had there. I mean, Bo Levi, obviously we've seen him before do some stuff on TV. He did a great job. The guys over at RDS. I mean, they did what they needed to do, and I thought it was fun to see on TV and on social and what they did. By the way, so there was a talking point. I know we've kind of skipped over it a little bit. I want to bring us back a little bit because it happened after the award ceremony, Cliff. Mm-hmm. Was your experience at the State of the League address? Because there was some interesting information that came out of this, out of the fan league State of the League address, rather than the report, rather than the media. But what was your experience like?
It's funny. I always laugh with the fan. Like, there's a remarkable difference between the media State of the League address versus the fan State of the League address,
which they didn't. By the way, they didn't stream this year, which I was very surprised. At least I didn't see it on. It wasn't available on social media, but I know the fan one was.
The fan one was, yes.
Yes. Yeah.
And the fan one, it's hilarious because I always feel like the same 4 questions get asked over and over again. And I even made a kind of a snide remark about it on Twitter a few weeks ago, because I know a few folks were kind of interested to see what Randy Ambrosi would have to say regarding certain things. And people ask, like, what kind of questions are going to be asked? And I'm like, it's the same 4 questions over and over again. When's Halifax getting a team? When's the Grey Cup going to be broadcast on CTV? Will the league ever consider going to 4-down football? And then you have this, at least you can always set your watch to it. You'll have at least one fan just go on a long-winded diatribe talking about everything and nothing all at once without asking an actual question.
Yeah.
And wouldn't you know it, 3 of those 4 truly did happen. And I'll let you guess which ones. I'll let you guess which one didn't happen.
I didn't watch all of it. I'm a bad CFL fan. I think the long diatribe did happen.
Yep.
I know the Halifax one did happen.
Yep.
The 4-down one didn't happen.
It did not. And I'm pleasantly surprised because, as you know, over the past couple of seasons, with whether it's with CBA talks or this potential interest in working with the XFL or whatnot, the debate has been there about possibly going to 4 downs. Mm-hmm. And fans have their opinions about it, good, bad, or other. But surprisingly, of all the questions that were asked at the fan State of the League, that question did not come up. So kudos to CFL fans. It seems like if there are fans of the idea of going to 4 downs in the Canadian Football League, they were very quiet. Like I did not hear any discussion about that at all. So
it's maybe not because it's not being talked about or being hinted at or whatever, but still, to me, the biggest outcome of this of the State of the League for the fans was the announcement of going back. And I don't know how it was prompted, but the announcement that the league is going to go back to Saturday playoff games for the Eastern for the semifinals and for the final. It's going back to Saturday games for the playoffs for the first time since 2008. Mm-hmm. And again, it was somehow it popped up again in the fan State of the League, and there were some some real big question marks on why it was not, why it wasn't brought up in the media State of the League address. But I mean, again, I don't think it was prompted, Cliff. You were there.
Well, I think Randy wanted to sort of casually drop it amongst the fans because, again, he wanted to get their reaction, see how they would react to it, whether it'd be good, bad, or other. But
and it got claps that I do remember seeing, and I know how. And this is what I want to talk to you about. First, your thoughts on them switching to Saturday playoff games again for the first time since 2008.
I definitely like the idea, and as I explained on the Rod Peterson show, the one thing I was thinking about was you and I going to the Eastern Final, for example. Mm-hmm. With the game being in Toronto, we made the decision to go the night before, stay overnight, watch the game, and then come home.
Right.
Because a lot of fans will, that want to travel to games like that, if they're able to, like, you think about it, like, unless it's like Montreal and Ottawa meeting in the Eastern semifinal or Eastern final, pretty much any other combination of Eastern teams, you're looking at least a 5-hour drive. In the West, same idea. Like the closest rivalry thing would be Winnipeg, Saskatchewan, and that's about a 5-hour drive there too, unless Calgary and Edmonton end up making a match out of it, in which case it's about 3 hours. So I mean, if said scenario exists where you could, in theory, drive to the game, I mean, it's a big ask, especially on a Sunday, to get up at like 4 a.m., drive to that stadium to do the tailgate, go watch the game, and then make your way back home. I know you and I, we discussed like the Eastern Final, like we thought it would be better to go the night before, and be done with it. But if the game was on a Saturday, that would change things considerably, and you wouldn't have that pressure of, okay, go to the game and then drive back home immediately because you got to work or go to school the next day. That's the one advantage I think of with the Saturday games, is you're going to get more of an audience that way. Like, you're going to have more people interested in attending. Like, especially like if it's a home game for you, then it's a non-factor. But if your team is the visiting team and you want to go and support them, the way Alouettes fans went to Toronto to support the Alouettes, I think it would be a lot more feasible, and you might even get even more of a response being able to do an event like this on a Saturday as opposed to doing it on a Sunday.
So your thought is because of the Sunday change, people will be able to still make the day trip if they wanted to, and then either A, stay overnight because it's Sunday and then make the trip back the next day, or head back that same day after the game.
Right.
So just flip-flopping what we did. More
or less, yeah.
Okay. What is, I understand that. I'm still trying to see the actual plus, because we basically did that. I understand we got back when we did on Sunday, but
yeah, we got,
I don't think we would have gone on Friday. We would have gone on Saturday.
Maybe not. But my point is, though, you wouldn't have that pressure. Like, if you did want to do that marathon road trip, then at least you'd have Sunday to recover from it.
Okay, I get what you're saying. Okay, now I see your point, because it's funny. Unlike you, I actually agreed with what Rod said, because Rod didn't agree with you when you guys were talking about it. I think it's just we'll see what happens, because obviously the league did not, or Commissioner Ambrose did not say how long this was in effect for. Was it just a 1-year test? Was it a multi-year test? That type of thing. Mm-hmm. To me, these days, the NFL really isn't a factor. TSN has 5 channels. My only thought is this: I will be on board with a Saturday playoffs if it's going to finally allow the CFL on CTV. If that's what they're thinking, Cliff, or what they're hoping for, I'm all for it. I'm all for it to getting it on free TV. I'm all for it. But if there's no real change or no opportunity besides, whether a fan gets home late or stays, or comes the day before or whatever, I see no problem with a Sunday playoff.
That's fair. Like,
I'm hoping there's a method to the madness for this change. And I don't know if you thought about that. If you've thought about that when you heard about the change itself, if that entered your mind, or was it just more the fan interaction and the pluses for the fans? Did you get that thought in your head when it came to a potential of change of broadcast venue? Yeah, I guess I'll put it that way.
Right. To tell you the truth, I didn't truly consider it because, I mean, even though people have been clamoring for CFL games to be on CTV, I think it's more the Grey Cup that they want to see on CTV, because to them that's the premier event, and why isn't that on free TV versus
that I agree to. Hell, you could simulcast. Come on. We've gone over this already this year, you and I have.
We certainly have. I mean, listen, we've made our opinion known about this. I'm sure Randy's heard it a bazillion times from fans from all 9 cities about this. I mean,
to me, NFL, I understand NFL is the entity that it is. The NFL should not, it hasn't dictated, supposedly in 2008, Cliff, the ratings tanked. I was trying to do some research to try to find it, but I couldn't find what the ratings were for the Saturday playoffs in 2008. But supposedly they tanked. That's why they went back to the Sundays in 2009.
Well, and let's not forget 2008 versus 2022. I mean, a lot can change in 14 years.
Oh, no kidding. So, yeah. Well, yeah. TSN has 5 channels.
For example,
there's streaming. There's everything, and I know that was brought up too. And did you take besides this? Did you take anything else away from? Because we've heard we seem to have heard all the answers, so to speak, from Randy Ambrosi. Whether you attended Randy's road trip, or whether you had been able to speak with him or heard him on some of the other podcasts or stuff like that. Did you learn anything new from the State of the League?
Not really, other than essentially it's the same stuff. I guess you ask the same questions, you're going to get the same answers. That's the thing that I find too. Like, a lot of fans really do like to take their opportunity to get up on their soapbox and just launch verbal vomit at the commissioner. Mm-hmm. Just talk about how it should be this, how it should be that, how it should be this, how it should be that, and just go on and on without actually asking a question. And to the point, like, I don't know how he manages to stay on topic to the point, and maybe that kind of allows for him to not answer questions either. If you don't ask him a question, how can you avoid the question if you're not asked a question? So,
yeah, I agree.
So yeah, unfortunately, I didn't really take anything new or anything that would be like, oh my gosh, this is incredible, other than the news of the switching of the Eastern Western semifinals and finals games to Saturday now.
Do you think it was a disservice for the way that Randy did this by completely shutting out your national media and not mentioning it? Because not everybody's going to watch this. Maybe they would have seen it on it wasn't broadcast or it wasn't streamed. Maybe it would have come out in a tweet. Do you think they did a disservice to the national media by not bringing it up?
I really think just all Randy was thinking about was trying to get that fan reaction. I think he was hoping for like a massive pop, like everybody just losing their minds with excitement. And yeah, there was applause, and there seemed to be a lot of people that were on board with the idea. So I think that's what he wanted more than anything else. Mm-hmm. Like, and media is going to say what they're going to say, and they'll have their opinions, good, bad, or other. So I think he truly was looking for that massive fan reaction. And I don't think he necessarily got it, but he got a reaction. And it was, I'd say for the most part, sounding positive. But to me, I think that's really what it was. I think that's why he waited. And also, too, I don't think anyone in the national media, if they had asked about that, whether or not, I'm sure he would have answered.
But again, it wasn't prompted.
Right.
I remember when he brought it up, they were I think a woman asked about a couple of things, and the schedule it wasn't prompted as much. But I was speaking of, suppose they're claiming that it should be out before Christmas, but I'm hoping it's out next week.
and also too, inadvertently, I mean, it wasn't denied or anything like that, but we can expect to see Touchdown Atlantic again in 2023.
Oh, nice.
Not sure where. That wasn't announced. It was kind of inadvertently leaked through a press release for Old Dutch potato chips, believe it or not.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Can you get any more CFL? That's great. That's hilarious.
Yep. And here's the interesting part, too. They're calling it East Coast Classic.
What?
They talked about in this press release, I'm telling you, from Old Dutch, they talked about the working together for the East Coast Classic. So I don't know if they're planning to go away from the name Touchdown Atlantic or if they're...
Interesting.
Or maybe even 2 games. I don't know. I can't say for certain, but... The way it was phrased in the press release leads me to believe that either a name change is coming or maybe 2 games. I guess we'll see. But suffice to say, there will be a game played in the Maritimes in 2023.
That's cool.
So, I mean... I don't know if you want to call that. I don't know if you want to call that a scoop or.
Or what. Hey, nobody else saw it except for you, so it's a scoop. It's a scoop. That's hilarious. Cool chips. Oh my god.
Only in the CFL, right?
Oh man, which ship was it again?
Old Dutch.
Oh, that's what I thought I heard.
Because they're next year they're becoming a league-wide sponsor.
Hey, is that another scoop?
Well, not really, because they sent a press release.
Okay.
So they've announced that was the crux of the press release was to announce that they were a league-wide sponsor for next season. I think the mentioning of the East Coast Classic or TD Atlantic was just, I guess, kind of a throwaway line, but maybe they didn't realize it was. And at least, like I said, I'm not saying that that's making it official, but they pretty much you can expect to see a game being played in the Maritimes in some way, shape, or form.
Wow, that's cool. That's cool. The way I'm reading it, by the way, I found it. It's on the press on the website. They, meaning Old Dutch, will also have strong fan engagement at the East Coast Classic, Touchdown Atlantic, supporting their initiative to grow the Old Dutch presence in Eastern Canada. I have a feeling it's going to be. It would be cool if it were more than one game, but I have a feeling I think it's just going to be Touchdown Atlantic. But still, that's cool, dude. That's cool. Anything else before game time?
As I said, actually got to, in addition to running into all kinds of players, the most notable, though, John Cornish. Got to run into him. Super nice guy.
Nice.
I thought that was really cool. Like, he was so happy to see fans and talk with them and everything like that. And just a really nice dude. I mean, he also showed up with all of his championship bling on, which is cool, So, but yeah. Just a super nice guy. I got nothing bad to say about John Cornish. I know, and yes, folks, he was wearing a belt, so didn't have to worry about his pants falling down or anything like that. He wasn't mooning anybody intentionally or otherwise, so I can report that much, that he did wear a belt with his pants.
That's hilarious. That's funny as hell.
Yeah, I mean, as far as like the festival goes, I mean, it's just great atmosphere all around. Being in the city itself and going to different events, like the unofficial tweet up that had happened.
Yeah, I'm glad that was unofficially brought back.
Well, you can thank CFL fans on Twitter for that, because the league had no plans to do any sort of get together for fans, like, whether you want to call it a tweet up or fan meetup or whatever the heck you want to call it. I mean,
meet and greet.
Yeah, meet and greet. So, but nothing officially from the league for that. So a couple fans decided to take it upon themselves to organize their own. And my goodness, they showed up big time. Like, I think capacity was 150 people at this restaurant. Mm-hmm. And I gotta believe it was close to, if not over it, even at some points. I mean, it was jammed with people, and just absolutely so much fun meeting people for the first time. Like, people I've known and followed on Twitter, and, people that know us as well. Like, it was just great to interact, and finally meeting a lot of these people for the first time was just super cool. It's one thing to see, words on a screen and seeing the tweets and from other CFL fans in it, which is great, but then to actually get to meet them in person, super cool. It was just a great event. Another great event was the CFL Fans Fight Cancer event, which was co-hosted, and organized, if you will, by our friends over at Piffles Pod. Steve and Alex did a fantastic job helping put the event together, on the Saskatchewan side of things, working with the actual CFL Fans Fight Cancer Committee to put on this event. Amazing turnout. Lots of money was donated. When it was all said and done, a little over $22,000 was raised for charity.
Nice. Congrats to them. That's amazing.
Absolutely outstanding. Back in 2019 in Calgary, I think it was just over 18,000, which was raised, which is terrific. But and last year, I think they did 11,000. But also, too, let's not forget, last year was the COVID Grey Cup, if you will. So didn't quite have as many people out and, for that event. But this year, I guess, was their comeback, if you will. And oh boy, did they come back. Nearly $22,000 plus is absolutely outstanding. So I got to take my hat off to Steve for organizing and getting all the prizes in and just lobbying and just doing everything he could to make this event a success. My hat's off to him. We've known him for a long time through the Piffles podcast, and just a good dude in and out. Man, I can't say enough good things about him. And like I said, the committee that puts this event on every year at Grey Cup, finding a local charity to donate the money to and helping to spread awareness of this event. Mm-hmm. And it's always jam-packed too, which I love to see. I love the fact that fans come out for these events. They buy raffle tickets, 50-50 tickets for the event itself. Also, too, fun fact, the 50-50 draw raised, I think it was just over, I think it was $3,400 because the 50%, the winner walked away with, almost walked away with $1,700. Instead, the winner turned around and donated that back to the CFL Fans Fight Cancer organization.
Wow, that's amazing.
Just a class move all around.
And it doesn't matter either, because if for people who didn't hear, the 50-50 also for the game itself this past weekend, started at $500,000.
Yep.
But grew, last time I heard, the pot had grown to $1.2 million. That's the last time I heard. Last time I heard it was 1.2 million.
Yeah, because you were able to buy. You were able not just buy tickets at the game, but you can buy tickets online throughout the festival and leading up to the game.
But you can only be in Saskatchewan to do so, which I was like, damn.
Yeah.
But still, what was the final tally? Do you have any idea? Because I know they stopped selling them in the fourth quarter, and I never heard anything after the 1.2 million. But it's mind-boggling. They do. What is with out west being able to pull this off? The largest amounts I've seen was for the Blue Jays exhibition games that they had here in Montreal a few years back, where it topped out at $110,000. But still, that's amazing for Quebec.
That is. But
Touchdown Atlantic, the amounts that they have given away at the juniors games, they do it so well out west. It's just absolutely mind-boggling.
It really is. There's nothing like it. Edmonton, Calgary, Winnipeg, these guys, and Saskatchewan, of course, they do 50-50 draws like nobody's business. Mm-hmm. It's incredible. And figure, okay, Grey Cup, huge event out in the prairies. I expected the number to get big, but when you surpass the $1 million mark, that's phenomenal. Imagine nuts. to walk away with half of that is that's incredible.
Yeah, exactly.
And much better odds than what Lotto Max or
exactly. Oh my God, I was saying the exact same thing. The exact same thing. What? Do you mind talking just quickly about the game? You okay with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. What were your thoughts? I was very impressed, but what were your thoughts on hearing the Canadian national anthem for the very first time in English, French, and Cree?
Incredible. I think it was so well done. It was kind of funny because I'm listening for all the parts of it, and again, I don't know Cree at all. And where I ended up watching the game too, the sound was not super conducive to the anthem itself. But I still think the fact that they had Tegan Little Chief come out and do a trilingual national anthem is super cool. It was just it was great. I'm used to hearing and quite frankly, I think the national anthem should be sung bilingually at all events, whether it's in Quebec or not. But you throw in Cree as well. Mm-hmm. That's just absolutely incredible. The Indigenous accent that was put on throughout the entire festival and into the game itself was tremendous. They did a fantastic job. Even at the CFL Awards, there was a couple of Indigenous acts as well that
yep. I saw
did
that.
did a phenomenal job. I mean, there was such a huge imprint of it throughout the entire province and throughout the game events. Just extremely well done as far as trying to bring that into focus and making people aware of everything that's gone on, and to help that sort of representation it's tremendous. It was really, really well done.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. And also it was so fitting. You and I both get this hyped when we have our military appreciation days here in Montreal, but seeing, and obviously we didn't get to hear it like we normally do, and it's just rumbling through your body, but seeing the snowbirds fly over before the kickoff, not just once, but twice.
Oh yeah, and we talked about this, like the flyovers in Montreal, like they just get you hyped. And when it comes to Grey Cup, I mean, that's when you bring out the big guns. Like when you got the snowbirds out for that, I just can't think of any better way to actually kick off the game, to really truly say game on, let's go. Like that is it right there. Mm-hmm. It's always exciting, and people lose their damn minds, and as they should, quite frankly, because it's just so much fun. It is so much fun. No, I know. And obviously we got to see it because we were watching it on TV, but I think they've done it before too, maybe with the Super Bowl, it's possible, but having the pilot in in one of the snowbirds actually introduce, they introduced something, one part of the other right before the national anthem, but introducing, it was the pregame show, the pregame music. But introducing that through the being in the cockpit and announcing that's just so cool. It's just so cool. If anybody wants to see it, it is on social. The CFL did put it out there. Mm-hmm. No, definitely. I said this is how you get people hyped for events like this. Yeah. I mean, it's this game. Let's not forget, the Grey Cup is supposed to be a celebration not just of Canadian football, but of Canada itself as well.
Yep.
And to me, like, it doesn't get much more Canadian than getting the snowbirds out doing the flyover.
Yeah. Game itself, Cliff, what are your thoughts?
The first half was just...
yeah, I agree. I'm there with you. And unfortunately, I'm saying that's my exact same reaction to the halftime show.
Oh, boy.
I like country music to an extent, but I was like, no. One half of Florida Georgia Line.
Yeah, and then a guy who we've only ever seen snippets of throughout every CFL game.
I liked Valley, by the way. I liked their music for the pregame show. I actually liked their style of music.
It was not bad. I will say it was not outstanding.
No,
and
because I know you and I both don't necessarily listen to the same music, but I think that it was done well. But halftime, no.
No, it was. And this is another discussion I've had on numerous occasions throughout the weekend. It's just like you could tell that this was the CFL's plan B, and not much of a plan B either, to be honest with you.
Something happened. I'm curious to know who was supposed to be the original halftime show.
I honestly think, and a lot of people have kind of confirmed this as well, I think it was supposed to be Shawn Mendes as the halftime show.
Oh.
But because he took a break from his tour for his own mental health, that kind of
I didn't even think about that. I didn't even think about Shawn Mendes. I threw out Bare Naked Ladies. I threw out some other groups and some other conversations. So,
well, if you're looking for like a Canadian act and someone who's extremely popular with, shall we say, the younger demographic,
yeah, Shawn Mendes, yeah,
that would be the one that checks off all the boxes. And again, I couldn't name a Shawn Mendes song, but I do know of him, and I know he's extremely popular. So would that have created more viewers? Potentially. Would that have got more people buying tickets to the game? Probably not. But I think you would have gotten more eyeballs on you. The ratings would have definitely gone up considerably. Just people would have wanted to check it out for that. Would have attracted new fans? Probably not, but it would have been an event. And again, on par with what you've come to expect from a Grey Cup halftime show. And then when I have a feeling that plan went south, and then scrambling to find someone else, and then you kind of go back to your roots, like the whole playing country music throughout every TSN broadcast. And who do we find?
One half of Florida Georgia Line.
Yeah, and then another Canadian country guy, let's throw those guys together, and I'm sure they could make some music happen.
Sure.
And okay, it's just, to me, it just kind of, it was, again, I'm not a country fan. I'm really not a huge fan of country music. So, and I think a lot of CFL fans, for the most part, are not fans of country music. Like, if you were doing this to pander strictly to the prairie audience, even a lot of them were just kind of like, really? That's the best you could do? Like, they were expecting a big name act.
I think it's how it occurred, but then again,
not to mention too, you took all this time, and that's who you come up with. Like, it just really came across as like thrown together at the 11th hour kind of deal.
Yeah.
Like, it just. No. Which it shouldn't be. No. And like, if you're going to wait all that time just to announce these guys, like if you were worried about everybody crapping over the halftime show, and let's face it, I don't care who plays the Grey Cup halftime show, you're going to find people that are going to complain about it.
Oh,
I even said Jesus Christ could come down from heaven and heal the sick during halftime, and people be like, "Oh, I really want to see Rush," like.
I wanted holy water. The second,
where's honeymoon suite?
The second half of the game was a lot better. It's funny, I can only imagine what is with Toronto and winning on these 1-point games, but how it occurred. I just feel so bad for Winnipeg's kicker. I mean, it basically was lost on that missed extra point, and and those the wacky back-to-back blocked field goals.
That's just it. Like, this year alone in the CFL, there was 2 blocked kicks for the entire season. The Grey Cup game in the fourth quarter, 2 blocked kicks. Mm-hmm. Unbelievable. Like, you couldn't script this.
No, you couldn't script. But I feel bad for Legio for Winnipeg. I mean, what a way to basically lose the game. I mean, it's but
yeah. And my God, Hinoch Mwamba, he stepped up big time, and he made that outstanding interception. Yeah, that more or less sealed the game for I got a feeling I may get some hate for this. I don't think that's the reason why he should have gotten the most outstanding player of the game. Canadian, yes, but 2 years. It's funny. Never happened. We never had a Canadian win both, but now it's 2 years in a row. No, in 2019.
Sorry, 2019.
Andrew Harris won both. But,
yes, sorry.
It's not quite in a row, but it is
2 out of the past. Yeah, 2 out of the past 3.
2 out of the past 3. You're
season.
Right. Yeah,
but that's my opinion. I think there probably could have been somebody else.
So who would you have gone with then?
I probably would have gone for Toronto. What's his name? Ouellette.
That's just, you can make a fair case. He did He did score 2 touchdowns, and.
But maybe it wasn't enough. Maybe because it wasn't Hinoch's interception really wasn't.
Well, you can make an argument that was the turning point. Like that was essentially what was the game. I think, like, when you talk about most valuable, like, if he doesn't make that interception and Winnipeg scores, then we're talking about their three-peat.
Yeah, it's fair. It's fair.
I mean, like, they
still didn't change. You still didn't change my mind.
No, that's fair. That's fair. But I think. He definitely played, like you talk about the heart and soul of the team, and I think that's a great way to describe Hinoch Mwamba. I mean, it was like that when he was in Montreal and pretty much everywhere he went. And hard to believe, like, it was a second Grey Cup game, but his first victory.
And what's killer too is Boris Bede does Boris Bede stuff, and he still wins the Grey Cup.
Not to mention Jaguar Davis, as we talked about.
See that's cool. That's cool. Yeah.
I mean, his 6th Grey Cup game, his 6th season, 6th Grey Cup game, and now his 2nd ring. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, like, tell you what, you want to talk about who should be the hottest free agent? People should be falling over themselves to get Jaguar Davis on their team, because at least you'll go to the Grey Cup. You may not win it, but you'll go to the Grey Cup if he's on your team.
But yeah, the game I will admit, it was the best way that the game needed to end after such a lackluster first half. And then Macbeth having to be pulled because it looked like he injured his thumb. Yep. Again,
and Chad Kelly stepping in and basically leading the game-winning drive. Mm-hmm. I mean, that impressive. I mean, and you talk about Chad Kelly, like, he's, it was almost like the butt of jokes for a lot of people because his college career and how things worked out with him in the NFL. It just. It's funny how the CFL is considered a league of second chances and redemption if you want it. Like, if you're willing to put in the work And that's what it was with Chad Kelly. Was I think he knew, like, he effed up when it came to his NFL career. Like, and I'm sure there's a big part of him that wants to go back and prove that he's not just Jim Kelly's nephew, that he can be a quarterback, he can be a leader. And the best way to do it, like we talked about this, like, you want to prove your worth, come up to the CFL and dominate. If you can do that, then this league is all about second chances, and that's exactly what Chad Kelly did. And you got to give him props for it. Like, he did a great job in relief of MBT, and now he's a Grey Cup champion.
Exactly.
I mean, that's incredible. That is pretty incredible all by itself.
Yeah, exactly.
And now it's now to the point too. Like, a lot of people were wondering if McLeod Bethel Thompson, if he were to win the Grey Cup, would he consider retiring? Because he's a journeyman quarterback who's been around for a long time and finally got his championship, finally got the ring that he was looking for. Maybe might be thinking about calling it a career. And if so, does Chad Kelly now become the man in Toronto?
Yeah, we'll see, won't we? We'll see what happens. And it's funny, it leads into the list that was released about the CFL, about the Alouette free agents. But I don't want to cut you off. Any last thoughts on your Grey Cup experience?
I got to talk about this. I could have gone to the game itself, and most people are like, "Well, you made all the effort to go to Grey Cup and go to Regina for the Grey Cup and all that, but you didn't go to the game." Like, no, I was invited by a very good friend. You know him on Twitter as RiderPrider19, Sean. He has a fan cave. Welcome to all CFL fans, and he invited myself and other CFL fans to come and watch the game at his place. So absolutely, we're going to be there for that, and watching the game and getting ready for everything. That who happens to walk in but CFL Hall of Famer and Alouette legend Nick Lewis?
Are you kidding me?
I am not kidding. My hand to God. Nick walks in.
That's cool.
Like, to a fan party. Nick Lewis, who could, again, he lives in Regina year round. I mean, he could have gone to any number of events. He could have gone to the game itself. But no, he's like, no, I want to come hang out with my buddy. And, Sean, of course, said, you're certainly welcome to come over and, hang out with a bunch of crazy CFL fans. And he was like, I'm down. Let's do this. So in walks Nick. And, of course, Nick and I, we have a bit of a history together, good, bad, and other. Always great to see Nick Lewis. I mean, we bust each other's chops. We have fun. It's hilarious. So throughout the game, like, he's dropping all kinds of knowledge, right? Like, he's like analyzing plays. He's analyzing what both teams are doing and trying to he's giving perspective on certain things and that. And like, I'd be asking him questions too about, like, well, should they be doing this? Should be doing that? No, watch for them do this and that. And like, he was calling out stuff like clockwork. Like, it was amazing. You know what? It felt like a Canadian Manning cast.
That's cool.
Like, that perspective of just being able to bounce football stuff off back and forth from someone who's been at the big game and played in the big game. We know Nick Lewis, he's won a couple of Grey Cups as well as a member of the Calgary Stampeders. Mm-hmm. So he knows what these guys are going through. And in between, like, explaining plays and breaking stuff down, and he was also dropping stories of his time with the Alouettes too, which was hilarious because he'd compare certain people to certain instances of his experience in Montreal. It was just amazing. And we got talking to him and I just throughout the entire game and talk about all sorts of things. And he wants to come on the podcast. So folks, sooner rather than later, expect to hear Nick Lewis on the podcast, and get ready to have your mind blown because he will drop knowledge big time. And I expect him to come in here, share some stories, and he's got a lot to say about his time in Montreal. And Nick, he's not afraid. He's not going to hold anything back. So
nope, from what we've seen. I want to bone up when he does. Come on here.
Yeah, I mean, it's so funny because I remember during the 2020 Grey Cup that never happened, there was a virtual Grey Cup. I don't know if you remember that, Tim, but Nick actually came on via Zoom while the rest of us were all on Zoom on this major Zoom call.
Yes, I do remember that.
And we got a little bit of that too. And part of me was thinking, shoot, why would we hit record? Because this is we effectively had a podcast going at that point. You and I were talking with Nick about this, that, and the other. But now we'll get a chance to do it properly, and I'm excited. I'm excited to have Nick on to talk about his time with the Alouettes, talk about his Hall of Fame career. Let's not forget he was inducted in the Hall of Fame this year. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, no big deal. Just watching the Grey Cup game with a CFL Hall of Famer.
That's cool, dude. That's cool.
I mean, no big deal, as the kids say.
Yeah. Hamilton.
So that to me, that was one of the many highlights of this Grey Cup trip, was just be able to say, yeah, I sat and watched the Grey Cup with Nick Lewis.
That's cool.
It was phenomenal.
Yeah. Reminder that Hamilton has already released the pricing for the Grey Cup for next year. There is no date as of yet, so stay tuned to all socials and to CFL.ca. Once the schedule does come out, there will be a date, and that's when you can start looking for your Airbnb. So. I'm glad you had fun, dude. I'm glad you had fun. I need to get to my fourth sooner or later somehow. Sooner or later somehow. I know people are at their 30s and 40s and 50s. It's like, I need to get to my fourth sooner or later in another location. So.
Well, I'm telling you, man. Like, I think we owe it to ourselves, whether the Alouettes are in it or not. I think the flight deck needs to go to Hamilton, set up shop there, and do our thing. Simple as that.
Yeah. News that came out this week. It was the year-end media conference with Danny Machocha and Mario Cecchini. Both of us watched it. Very interesting. Some very interesting takeaways from this. Obviously, some of the things that we know. It's been reiterated again that Danny Mac will most likely not be the head coach of the Alouettes. They have some people in mind, external and internal, but they did not announce who they were. So there's one thing where I think where you and I may have differed a little bit, because I know we talked about this before the beginning of the broadcast, is that how the reaction was, at least how I took the reaction to when it was announced that, they asked about the head coach, whether he was going to be Francophone or if he was going to be from other parts of Canada. And I've talked to a few people. I've gotten a few different answers. I got the same one from you, a different one from you too. When it was asked about the head coach, was he going to be a Francophone, and it was stated that it wasn't necessarily going to be, that was the case because you want to have the best person to represent the team and to take this team to the Grey Cup. To me, Cliff, it just came across when the other questions were asked after the fact by the media, is that I guess I felt that at one point I felt it was a little confrontational or maybe a little hot, a hot button topic type of thing. But I mean, I know I think you and I didn't hear it the same way. But my thought is, I don't understand. Shouldn't matter what language the head coach speaks as long as he's the right fit, which is what was again, I've already said it, but that's what was reiterated by Mario. Again, I know I've already said how you thought, but I know you don't feel the exact same way and you didn't hear it the same way that I did.
No, I didn't. I think the question was obviously going to be asked. There's no, there was no debate about that. But I think it was answered properly by both Machocha and Cecchini that, you want the best possible person, regardless of the language or languages that they speak. And I didn't take it as such that anybody from the media was perturbed or offended or didn't agree with that line of thinking. I think it was just a question that had to be asked, and I'm sure a lot of people were wondering too. I think it all comes back to like the Montreal Canadiens. Their head coach and GM have to be bilingual and preferably francophone. I mean, to me, I think as long as you're bilingual, that's the important thing. But I guess they feel like the best way to do that is to have someone francophone who can speak English as opposed to someone anglophone who can speak French.
Right.
To me, what difference does it make as long as both languages are spoken? Whereas in the Canadian Football League, that's not necessarily such an important thing, or at least it shouldn't be such an important thing. And I guess that's something that Machocha, who is bilingual, stated that, I know it's important for you guys, for me to be able to communicate in English and French, but as far as the head coach goes, we want the best person possible for the job. We want someone who's going to fit within the organization and essentially lead this team to the Grey Cup and win it. To me, that's how I took it. That was his tone, and I think that's how it came across. I honestly didn't detect any sort of hostility or anything of that nature from the media in asking it. Maybe that's just, like I said, it was a question that needed to be asked, but I don't think there's anything behind it. No political or linguistic motivation behind it.
Oh, I don't think it was political, and I've never brought politics onto the podcast. I just had the audio in my ear, and again, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But I said you have a different answer. I've had many people have different answers too. So that I've talked to about this because I asked specifically. I said, did I hear this wrong? So I think you've actually tipped it in the scale of I heard it wrong, so which is fine. Which is fine, but you're right. It would have been asked,
and that's the funny thing. And it's only in Montreal where that question will actually be asked, like where it actually becomes an actual talking point. Because again, the last year, Machocha, who is bilingual and was able to answer questions from both the French and English media with no problem. Mario Cecchini is also bilingual, also able to answer questions both in English and French. So I mean, should that be a requirement? I don't think so. Is that important? I'm sure it's important for a lot of people, especially for the French media. They'd like to be able to ask their questions in their own language, which is fair. But I also think, too, that there has to be a way to communicate, make sure you get both sides of the story, like make sure that whoever is listening to press conferences should be able to understand questions both in English and in French. Mm-hmm. Because, again, you have people that are interested in the Alouettes that are outside of Quebec, like people in the rest of Canada. So I'm sure a lot of them would like to know what some of these French questions are. So if there's some sort of way to have a proper translation done, that would also be ideal. But again, maybe in time that'll happen. But I don't think it was a major hot button issue, nor should it be realistically.
Right.
I mean, I think really what matters more than anything else is whoever the next head coach is, whether it comes from the organization themselves or from outside of the organization, they just got to come in with the mindset and being given every opportunity possible to put together a winning football team.
Yeah. Another thing that I guess came up, because we talked about this earlier, we reported on it earlier in the year, the question that came up again about Percival Molson and getting a regulation-sized field at Percival Molson. It was actually expounded a little bit more in the RDS article that was posted today. There's some merit to this about putting a full-size field at Percival Molson. Now, who's gonna take point on this? I don't know, because McGill does have a field house, which we've mentioned in weeks past, where they can do track and field. Track.
Yes.
It has been 10 years since the Alouettes changed their turf, so I don't know where this is going to go, because obviously if you go to a full-size field, you got to remove the track. This work needs to be done. The question is, how quickly can they get it done if it does go ahead? And again, is it McGill? Is it the team? Is it a combination of both?
Yeah, because someone's got to pay for it. And if McGill's not using their track, then you can make the argument that the Alouettes should be allowed to put their full-size field in place. Because let's face it, the Alouettes are the major tenant at Percival Molson Stadium. That being said, that's exactly what they are, a tenant. So they got to kind of play by the rules of the house. And if McGill doesn't see the value in it, then they may say, okay, if you really want that, you'll pay for it, not us, because we're fine with the stadium how it sits. If you don't like the field, that's a you problem. So
yeah,
or does it come down to both sides realizing how important and how much it benefits both parties? And they come up with some sort of compromise.
Yeah, because if you go back and you listen to our special episode where we were talking about the 25th anniversary of the U2 game, it was mentioned there that the leading past that, the Alouettes were putting, based on their contract with McGill, they had to put $100,000 of improvements into the stadium for each of that, for whatever that term of that contract was. Don't know if that's the exact same thing now, but.
And over the years, too, the Alouettes have contributed significant amount of money into the upkeep and improvement of Percival Molson Stadium.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting, but it seems to have merit, because I think in the RDS article it mentioned that there are talks going on between the team and McGill, and so I'll have to retweet that or get that out onto our socials, because it's an interesting read. The other thing that interests me also, which leads into our last topic, which bleeds into our next topic, or the last topic of the show actually, is they were talking about, they want to have a new head coach by Christmas, and that leads into our, to the list of the free agents that the Alouettes are going to have this year, because I think it was mentioned that I think they said they've not started conversations with Gino. But Gino, as we mentioned last week's show, Gino himself, he wants to be at a certain echelon within the team itself. Mm-hmm. There's so many variables for next year. And now, in your opinion, Cliff, if they say by Christmas, does that hurt the Owls when it comes to potentially getting some of these free agents to stay? I can't remember at what point can other teams start talking to these? Because I know obviously they get. I think they get first right to refusal, or they get the first chance to talk to these free agents first outside of the free agency period.
You can talk to them anytime you want.
Yeah. Does it hurt the Owls in trying to get some of these guys to come back, or all these guys to come back? Which we're going to talk about the list here in a minute.
Potentially, but only because there are you don't. It kind of hampers the team in the sense that you may want to sign players, but if they want to know who the next head coach is, that could play a very big factor because there are some people. It's very possible that they may want to play for somebody, a particular person, or don't want to play for a particular person. So, I mean, at that point, then it comes down to money because what else are you going to offer? Like if you don't want to play somewhere, but hey, these guys are offering me, $500,000 a year to play, then hell yeah, I'll play there. I don't care about that, but
it's the variables, that plus guaranteed money. I know we mentioned this last week. We got the designated Canadian, which could easily equal to some more money within a contract.
And even with talking with Gino during Grey Cup, I mean, like we didn't talk too much about the situation, but he sounds like someone who wants to stay in Montreal. He's planning to spend a fair bit of time in the offseason still in Montreal itself. So this is a guy that wants to be here, but he wants to get the numbers right. And he wants to make sure that it's a good situation. Like he's done very well for himself here in Montreal. There's absolutely no question about that. It's here where he became a household name.
Yeah.
It's here where he became the superstar that we know and love. And the idea of him playing somewhere else doesn't sit right with me. Quite frankly, if I'm Danny Machocha, and I've said this before and I'll say it again, I'm almost of the opinion you got to hand him a blank check and say, Gino, write an amount and it's yours. That's like whatever it's going to take to make sure that he retires a Montreal Alouette. That's what you got to do. Like that's just he's in that category as far as I'm concerned. Like he's in that rarefied air of Montreal superstar that needs to be a part of this scene. As long as he's a player, as long as he can play and catch footballs, Eugene Lewis needs to be a Montreal Alouette. And whatever it's going to take to make that happen, and I don't see him giving a hometown discount. I think he's been very smart with the way he's done things, like year-to-year contracts. He's making decent money. But again, as a nominee for most outstanding player, for all the highlight plays that he's made, like for everything that he brings to this team, he definitely needs to be rewarded now. He needs to be shown that he's appreciated and that this is our guy going forward. Whatever it takes to make that happen. I know it's easy as like supporters of the franchise to say, "Oh yeah, just give him whatever he wants."
Well, what did I say on social? I think my number I said was 250. Wasn't that the number I put on social?
I believe it was, and yeah, I would say that's a very good starting point. I mean,
250,000, by the way.
I mean, to me, it just comes down to whatever it'll take to keep him here. More than like this year-to-year stuff has to stop. Like you got to make sure Gino is 100% an Alouette for years to come,
and give him the guaranteed in years 2 or 3 or both,
whatever it takes. I mean, I think that truly is what it comes down to. Like you can make arguments for any number of players for any length of contract or financial terms or what have you, but yeah, getting Gino to remain an Alouette has to be priority one. I mean, yes. Obviously, I can understand and appreciate why you want to get the head coaching situation sorted because that just may be the first domino that falls and everything else kind of goes after that. So if that's the case, to me, though, you got to keep discussions open with Gino and let him know, like, listen, we want you here. You're our guy. We want to make this happen. So if it's a simple matter of having some say in who the next head coach is or anything else, any sort of other decisions that he wants to give his 2 cents on, let him have it. Let him say his piece. Let him offer his thoughts and take that into consideration and make him feel like he is the part of the team that we expect him to be.
Exactly. Now the names itself, these are the big names to me out of the list, which as I said we have it is on our socials. Quarterbacks, it's our 1 and 2 guy right now. Trevor Harris and Dominic Davis. Running back Walter Fletcher. Wide receivers, Keon Julian Grant, Eugene Lewis, Hergy Mayala, Reggie White Jr., Jake Winicky, Chandler Worthy.
Mm-hmm.
Just that alone is, I think it's more, obviously with all these 1-year contracts, as you mentioned before, it's going to happen, but I'm hoping if we can keep this nucleus together somehow, I still think, you know what? We still need a Trevor Harris at quarterback, in my opinion.
It's crazy to think that I'm going to say this, but you're absolutely right. I think you got to look towards the future. There's no question about that. And Trevor Harris is not the future. He's the now.
No.
He's the guy that will get you. He's now the guy that will get you to the future.
And they brought up Davis Alexander again, by the way, in the press press conference.
As they should. I mean, this is a guy that he's got a lot of raw potential, but it's not his time. I mean, he's not Chad Kelly in the sense that you can throw him in there and he'll do what Chad Kelly did, for example. You can't compare the two in that sense. But I think there is definitely something there with Davis Alexander that if you properly mold and nurture that talent that's there, and you can see that there is definitely talent there. It's just you got to give him the chance to develop properly.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that it'll necessarily fall into the hands of Trevor Harris to develop the quarterback of the future. I don't think he's ever been asked to do that, nor should he be. But it is something you have to think about when it comes to your coaching staff, for example. Like, you got to make sure you have the right pieces in place to ensure that you're developing the next great quarterback for the Montreal Alouettes. Right now, I'm okay with keeping Trevor Harris on board, knowing full well that he may have 1-2 years at the most left at the level that he's playing.
And he may also be a piece of the puzzle for Gino to stay.
That too, because again, even though Gino has proven that he can catch passes from just about anybody, whether it's Vernon Adams or Trevor Harris or Davis Alexander even. We're not worried about Gino as far as that goes, but you know that he's also concerned. Like, who's going to be throwing me these passes? Yeah. Who's going to help me make these highlight plays? Yeah. And that's a question absolutely that needs to be answered. So I definitely think, I think just based on what he was able to do in that second half of the season, I know people are losing their minds. Like, you're on board with Trevor Harris? Like, yeah, I think for at least one more year, but with the idea that you have to look towards the future. If you think it's Davis Alexander, then you invest in him. If you think it's somebody else, then you get that somebody else. Whoever you think is going to be and then you got to put the time, the effort to properly develop that. Like, we cannot have another scenario, another quarterback clown car like we had after AC was retired. You can't have that. It comes down, and this is what Danny Matoshi talked about too, was having that stability to build something and keep it consistent for years to come.
Yeah. Did you hear Trevor's, by the way, reaction 2 weeks ago when they told him how many quarterbacks had been the starting quarterback?
Yeah. I mean,
he was like, what? Since AC retired? Can we really go? I would love to have a 1-2 double-headed monster for running back, but I don't know if Walter Fletcher is going to end up staying here.
I hope he does.
I hope he does too. I think it worked really well. Don't judge him by what happened in the Eastern final. It just something went within the play scripting. Just didn't. Reggie White, I think, will be back because I think he wants a chance to show. Jake, I'm not doing it. This is tough, dude. This is so tough. And this is just quarterback and wide receiver.
Yeah. I mean, KGG, you have to. I mean, he really came into his own this year,
and that's a +2, by the way, between KJG and Hergy. They're nationals, which is, I think, can help them.
Yeah, they're ratio busters.
Yeah.
I mean, when you think about too, like with Tyson Philpott being a national receiver as well.
Yeah,
I mean,
extend him. God damn it, extend him. Extend him now. Extend him.
Still on his rookie deal, but yes.
Tear up the rookie deal and extend him now.
Just give him the keys to the kingdom. That's what it is.
Something. Any other names stand out to you? I know Tyrese Beverett. Oh,
that's someone that
Micah Awe did do a very good job when he came over. So did Thomas Costigan.
Yeah. I think Costigan is a great depth
Lyon. Greg Reed. I wonder if he'll be given a chance.
I think it all comes down to his injury situation. I think
Darius Pickett may.
I could see him testing the free agency market.
I can too. I can too.
I think he put together a very solid body of work, and I think someone's going to probably offer him stupid money, and I wouldn't be surprised if he took it.
Yeah.
Nafis Lyon came in hot and kind of cooled a little bit, but I think still is someone that can be an every down kind of player for the Alouettes defense, and still someone that belongs here.
And will people get on board with Wesley Sutton? Yes, he got reamed at the beginning of the season by fans,
But he kind of got his act together. He plays very solid. I mean, unfortunately, in the Eastern final, he kind of got burnt a little bit. So I don't know if he was playing out of position at that point or what, but you know what I think about Darius Pickett was in that same boat last year.
It's true.
He was lost in the secondary.
Mm-hmm.
They moved him into the linebacking position, and he excelled. I can't help but wonder if maybe if you could find another spot in the secondary, maybe that's what it will take for Wesley Sutton. But I think he's somebody that has proven himself and definitely deserves a chance similar to what Pickett went through. Because I remember Pickett too, like he looked so lost in the secondary. But as soon as you put him at linebacker, oh boy, did he come alive. Mike Jones too. I mean, that's somebody that definitely needs to stick around. Like he has just been so productive, and it just such an intelligent football player. Like that's someone who I sincerely hope Montreal finds a way to keep on board. Like you don't have to break the bank for him, I don't think, but he is definitely one of those playmakers that knows what it takes to win, and definitely deserves to be back here as well.
And I think what we'll do is, because obviously this is a very fluid situation, we'll leave it at that. Check it out on social, what the list is. It's because there's so many variables for this team in the off season. You know, the head coach, whoever the new head coach is going to be, will be one of those pieces, and it will go from there. But stay tuned to any of our socials for any information that does come across, and especially for, obviously we want the schedule coming up too. And by the way, speaking of, this isn't our last show. We have a couple more things that we want to do besides giving away the Delta jacket. But we got a couple of things up our sleeves that we're hoping to do. And as I said, you will hear from us next week. But Cliff, dude, I'm glad you had fun. Thanks for the stories, dude. I think it just goes to show you don't necessarily have to be in stadium to go at the Grey Cup to enjoy the Grey Cup Festival.
There, no question. I mean, there's so many people that I've met over. Like, and I've been to quite a few Grey Cups myself, and it's amazing how many times people are like, "I've never gone to the game. I just love coming for the parties. I love coming for the festivals. I love coming for the lead up to the game itself." Like, and whether your team's in it or not, like you just don't care. You're there to go and see friends that you haven't seen since the last Grey Cup, essentially. I mean, and it really hit home this year because this kind of felt like the first full Grey Cup since Calgary in 2019, because we didn't have in 2020, and in Hamilton last year was I kind of called the COVID Grey Cup because it was a Grey Cup, but just on a smaller scale than what it could or normally should have been, and you still had COVID hanging overhead. I mean, not that you don't still have it now, but I mean it just felt like, okay, we got to try and get back to as close to normal as possible. And I think that's what this Grey Cup was for a lot of people, was we got to get back to what it was. I remember what Grey Cup was, and I want to get back to that. And I think that was a sentiment for a lot of people. And even though like a lot of the diehards that were normally at Grey Cup year after year, they still have not been back to Grey Cup yet.
Yeah.
God willing, they'll be back for, if not in Hamilton, then maybe in Vancouver for 2024. It's that slow rebuilding. I guess not going back to normal, because let's face it, we're never going back to normal. And as I said before, that's fine. I think creating this new normal as to, trying to incorporate as much of what we remember, the spirit of Grey Cup itself, and what we remember, what made it so special, and being able to recreate that in 2022 was tremendous. And hats off to everybody who was at Grey Cup, the organizers, the city of Regina, the CFL, everybody that was involved in making the Grey Cup Festival and the Grey Cup event itself what it was. I mean, hats off to each and every one of them, because they did it. They did everything they could to make this as memorable an event as possible. And I can tell you right now, Tim, I will not forget this Grey Cup anytime soon. Not necessarily because of the game itself, even though the game was pretty outstanding when it was all said and done, but just for everything that had happened. Like, it was such a whirlwind of activity. It was great to see so many amazing people, people that we know in the media as well. I mean, there were so many facets to the whole Grey Cup experience that, I mean, until you go and experience it for yourself, I mean, I can sit and talk about it until I'm blue in the face, but until you actually experience it yourself, I mean, you just don't necessarily get the whole thing. But once you're in and doing it and you're a part of it, you realize that, this is something that I need to do each and every year. And there's really, truly nothing like it. Like, as far as celebrating this great game, celebrating this sport, celebrating this country, that's what Grey Cup is all about. It is truly a Canadian celebration.
Yeah.
And being a part of it was absolutely outstanding. And already I'm looking forward to Hamilton in 2023.
Cool. Again, dude, I'm glad you had fun. We appreciate all the listeners this week for joining in for our 35th show of our 7th season, 35 shows, Cliff. We will be back for our 36th. Stay tuned for all information that we may come across on social media, but we hope to have you back then. So for everybody here for the Alouettes Flight Deck, for Cliffy D, I'm Tim Capper. We're on Final Approach.